Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. We're reviewing the games from the OCA Cowley Blitz Chess Tournament. So we're looking at one of Gildersleeves' games against tui1. tui1 plays for Cowley, very good at classical and rapid. Good player. So let's have a look what happened here. So d4 from white, d5 from black, knight c3. So this is a Chigorin attack. You can play this sort of move as black, so it can go d4, d5, c4, knight c6. That's a Chigorin defense. You can also play it as white here. Black offers a transposition to the Caracan with c6. You can also play e6 and offer a transposition to the French defense. White chooses not to accept that, just bishop f4, continuing with the original concept, developing. Knight f6, very sensible. e3, it's a book move. Now h6 is original move, played by Mamedyarov in 2010. And Mamedyarov won the game, so it's got a good pedigree. White stays with the game, and Ponomariov's response, bishop d3, which is also again logical, bringing the bishop to an active attacking square. And black goes ahead and attacks the queen. Now there's a few ways to defend this. White defends it classically by putting the knight in the way. e6 from black. White puts the question to black what it's going to do with that bishop, and actually the bishop chooses to take. White takes back, opening the g-file onto black's king side. So all of a sudden, it's going to be hard for black to castle there, and it's hard for black to castle on the queen side as well. So this is a pretty smart move actually, because with that bishop on f4 hitting the queen side, you'd worry about castling queen side, and also here you'd worry about castling king side. White has used 1 second so far, so just playing on the increment. So playing these moves pretty instinctively, I would say. Black's used 7 whole seconds. Knight bd7, put the rook on that open file, so now the bishop can't move. Well, the bishop can move, but you're sacking the g-pawn. And so black removes that threat by playing pawn g5 and also hitting the bishop on f4, which then moves to f6. Bishop g7 develops the bishop and breaks the pin. And then we've got pawn f4. Now, black can't take that pawn because that will drop the bishop on g7. So instead exchanges the bishop, perhaps hoping that white would take with the f-pawn and take the pressure off the g-pawn, but white takes with the d-pawn. And the knight runs back, defending the g-pawn. So actually that pawn's now defended 3 times. So it looked like a crisis here, didn't it? It looked like the knight was attacked, and also the g-pawn was attacked twice and only defended once. But actually with knight here, it solves all the problems. Queen comes around. This is an interesting move, attacking f7. Now, no other piece can attack immediately, but still, this should be a source of concern for black. By the way, it also pins the f-pawn, so if black could take on e6, that would be cool. And black's alive to this, so defending the pawn with the queen. White castles long, and black castles long. So this, you can see this queen move to e7 was a great move, because it paved the way for castling. It also defended the f-pawn to allow black to castle. Both castled, and all of a sudden I would reassess at this point, because a lot of things have changed. Both kings have gotten to safety, and the queen's purpose on h5 has slightly evaporated, and we've got a very complex original position. White's pushed. Now the engine wants to take on e5 here. Black pushes, and you see why, just to get that pawn away from the queen, and you know, create a bit of space, maybe create a way for the knight to get back in the game. So the knight's currently a bit offside on h7, and this might help the knight to get back into the game. Queen runs. Now its job is done from h5, and now black has taken an e5 and created a square for the knight. White takes there, so it's got a pawn each, and the knight's back in, hitting the queen. The queen comes onto the f-file, but then the rook stands opposite the queen, which should make it feel a bit uncomfortable. Now white goes all in here and takes the pawn, assuming the discovered attack is a bluff, or just takes the pawn, perhaps not seeing the discovered attack, I don't know. But black now has discovered attacks, which the computer is helpfully indicating with arrows. So the minute that knight moves, the queen will get hit by the bishop, but perhaps as seriously, the bishop's also x-raying onto the knight c3. So black plays knight d4, hitting the queen with the bishop, and then hitting the knight c3 twice afterwards. Queen moves, takes, takes. I would take with the bishop on c3 here. Looks terrible, because then you've got queen a3, queen b2 mating. I mean, what does white even do? So white has to play, the engine says white has to play rook df1, allow the king to run through d1. Black played another good move, queen a3. King runs, queen takes, king runs, and now queen back to f6. In a way, sort of rather amusing revenge, because now instead of white targeting the black f-pawn, black is targeting the white f-pawn. White's going to create some counterplay on the open file. Both players have got a minute left here, so it's bullets stakes now. It's pretty fast, and the queens are still on. Black just hoovers up a pawn, so black is now a pawn up. Is that right? 6 pawns for black, 5 pawns for white. That looks like a pawn up. And now white is bringing that other rook into the attack, so I assume it's heading for b4, maybe double the rooks on the b file. White is threatening the f-pawn, but also probably threatening a check on f3, which could create problems for white. Now white is doubled on the b file. 43 seconds plays 48 seconds. 43 seconds for white. Check from black, yeah, on that weak f3 square. King runs to e1, and it's very easy to overlook this. There's a bishop check here, winning an exchange. The king can only move to f1. Takes, takes, and now very, very quick, with only 40 seconds left, seeing that you can take on e3 because that pawn is pinned. The king runs to avoid the pin. Check at the back. King here, and then the rook just skewering the king against the queen. But more seriously than that, it's mating too. I mean, actually, black's threatening to take the rook off on b4. When the king moves, the queen's dropping. But even more than that, there's a mate, because king goes here. Well, the king's forced to g3. Then you've got queen e3. King goes here. I mean, they're down to no seconds at all here, and they don't have an engine on. And you've got h5 checkmate. So basically what happens is black's attack broke through, really, with bishop c3. I think it's fair to say. But black had quite a few threats. So a very interesting game, double-sided game, very original. Really enjoyed looking at it. And next, we're going to look at one of tui1's games.